Hello, my friends. It's been a few days, but I'll explain in a minute. Today is the 25th of June, 2024. Okay, I am on a project to see God face to face, which I told you last time. And this is a huge, monumental project. It's important. A lot has happened, little things, nothing huge, but each little thing is a big step towards a big mountain. And each little step counts, each little step is important, and it can make or break the journey. It can take me on the wrong path, the wrong road, it can hurt my intentions, and I'm learning something with each day that goes on, and so I'm taking you along for the ride. And if any of you is serious, you will listen. Um, I noticed my views went up a little bit, and the last one, I am not trying to get I'm not trying to get huge views. The last time when I spoke of my life story, I showed myself with glamorous, sexy clothes, jewelry, makeup, hair fixed, everything as perfect as I could make it, and I got a lot of views. But how many of those views were serious? How many of those were wankers? How many of those are just getting off on my body? How many of those just curious about how I look? How many? 99.9% plus. There was probably 1 out of 1,000, if that, or 1 out of 10,000, or 1 out of 100,000, who seriously listened to some of my serious dissertations when I spoke about my graces which the great God has given me. I don't even think, in other words, the audience was there for a reason, and they weren't there to hear me. They were there mostly to see me. It was a show business. And I know how we get people in show business through glamour and sex appeal. It's like in Vegas. Nobody's there to go to college. You're there to be entertained. You're there for glamour, entertainment, music, gorgeous outfits. Even men dress in very stylish, some of them. The more flamboyant men like Liberace and Elton John and Boy George and all of those guys, they drew people partially with their outfits. I mean, when Liberace changed from his very fancy outfit to a plain suit, within 1 week his show was canceled. Canceled after years of being on because the ratings dropped so low. So were they listening to Liberace's piano playing? Because he was a great piano player. No. Well, yeah, but they were mostly more so looking at his outfits and his flamboyancy and his capes that had thousands and thousands of rhinestones em- embedded in them, things like that. And Boy George and these other guys, they wear these wild fancy glasses and everything. Are you listening to their music? Yeah, but you also want those outfits. So this is a new journey for me, and I'm somewhat divided in my own opinions, somewhat divided in my own ideas, and I was planning to show myself in conservative outfits, and then it took so long to get ready with the lights and the getting dressed and the makeup. It took me 2 hours to get ready. Only made two like that. It took me 2 hours to get ready. And I'm just simply don't have the time. I have become more busy than ever, writing more than ever, writing more books than ever. I've published, I'm trying to think how many books in the last 3 years. 11 books in 3 years. That means I worked almost every day for 2 years, almost every day, 5 hours a day on writing for a while. And then after that, not as much, but then I began to do other things. I still was writing articles and interpreting dreams. Okay, so right now I want to get a serious audience. Okay, so it's a new audience, it's a serious audience. It won't be as many. It won't be as many. People want to see me. They want to see me out of curiosity. They want to see me out of, they want to see my glamour, my outfits. They don't want to see me looking like Mother Hubbard. They want to see me looking good. And I want to see me looking good. So I'm not going to just jump on there looking bad and say it's okay. I'm not. I'm either going to let you just listen to me and not bother about that, or when I do get on, I'm going to try to look good. How good can I look? Not as good as I used to, because we get older every year, so I look older. And plus, I've lost 44 pounds. 44 pounds, and I look older because of that, because I have more wrinkles than I did before. You see, so there's all kinds of things. Okay, the reason I didn't make any videos for a few days is because I ran out of room on space. Whenever you don't see me for a few days, please look on the comments section, and I will be talking to you in the comments section and also in the description sometimes. Not quite as often, but sometimes I add to the descriptions. But mostly when I want to tell you anything, like why I haven't appeared for a while, it'll be in the comments section. Now, the last video I made, it suddenly ended abruptly. It was a long video, it was an hour and a half, and it suddenly, bang, it wasn't there anymore. And I tried to start it up again, and my computer said, "You have no more space." So, wow, as I talk about space, I was spaced out. I hadn't I didn't realize I was that close to being out of space. And I do have an external drive, but I had to get my webman to say when he could come and help me, because I'm not expert at it. I didn't want to mess with it and make a mistake, because I've made mistakes before and I have erased hundreds of videos by mistake through stuff I did that was wrong, that I didn't understand. I didn't want to make any mistakes, so I had to wait for him a few days. And I did. This was a Thursday that I ran out of space, and by Saturday he came, and the two of us worked together, and we got about 200 gigabytes onto my external hard drive. So now I should be set for a while. Now these long videos that I'm doing, like an hour and a half, or anything over an hour and a half, and so they take between 8 to 11 megabytes. I'm sorry, gigabytes. Not megabyte, not megabytes. Megabytes. It takes 1,000 megabytes to make 1 gigabyte. So 1 gigabyte is 1,000 megabytes. So you're talking a lot of space, and on an ordinary PC, the space goes pretty fast compared to these new external hard drives, which have terabytes, not only gigabytes, but they have terabytes. Terabytes are 1,000 gigabytes. So, that's going to be a while before you run out of space on that. But I used to have two of them. I used to have two external hard drives, and one of them went defunct. Have no idea why, but I have an idea. But anyway, it's gone. So I'm just going to buy another one, no problem. Okay, so when I don't appear, look for me on the messages. Now, I want to continue talking to you about how to see God face to face. I claim that I have the formula, and I do have the formula because I've done it before, and I've also studied one of the greatest mystics of all time, Saint Mary of Agreda, 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 St. Mary of Agreda. She lived in the 1600s. She knows more about visions and than anyone I have ever read. And she wrote this 4-volume book called The Mystical City of God, which I read in 1981. And everything that she said, I wasn't following her formula. I wasn't trying to see God face to face. I don't think it would have been possible for me. I was just trying to be close to God, be one with God in 1981. And I succeeded. And the result was that I went to the other side. I actually, in a what's called a DBE, uh, is it DBE, death, when you come back from the dead, when you die and come back. So you have to be in that state. You have to actually, like God said to Moses, you cannot see me and live. You have to be dead to self. So when you die, you are dead to self. But to see God while you are still living in the flesh before you die physically, you have to die to self, meaning, so that is dying to self is the science and the formula that we are now working on, that I am trying to execute, and that I hopefully will share with you. And if any of you is trying to follow me and do likewise, I will like to hear about it. It's a far chance that any of you right now is doing it. Maybe after a while, maybe I have these videos on for a while, maybe I'll get one or two or three people that are actually serious about it. And the best thing that I can advise to any of you is to read The Mystical City of God by Mary of Agreda, book 2, The Coronation, in the 400, the chapter starting with the 400s. It gets closer and closer to the discussion on the Beatific Vision. At the moment, I'm trying to think. Wait, hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Oh. Yeah, when you get to 615, section 615, 616, up until 620, there's 5 sections, and then well, we'll talk about that, but I'm not ready for that. I'm studying that again, and I'm not ready to discuss that because I have a lot of catching up to do from since Thursday, and today's Tuesday, and this is a diary. This is more of a diary than a lecture or a sermon. It's a diary of what I'm doing and what I'm learning, what I'm relearning, what I'm remembering from when I did it in 1981, and I succeeded to see God face to face twice in 1982, February 13, 1982, and March 23, 1982. So I am reviewing all of this. Now, this is not an event that you can just snap your fingers and say, this is it, I'm doing it. You have to be ready. There's a lot of preparation. There's physical, mental, emotional preparation. There's lifestyle preparation. And we've gone through a few of the preparations. And I did say to you already, there's 3 major, there's many minor or smaller considerations, but the 3 main obstacles against you seeing God face to face are: 1, sin. You have to get rid of sin, any kind of sin that you have, like habitual sin or any kind of sin. And second is false. False are called venial sins, small sins, but they're false. But besides that, when this is so exact, this science of seeing God face to face, that you can't even have venial sins, and false are not even venial sins. They're less than a venial sin. They're not even sin. And then the third thing is attachment. Attachment is not a sin either, but you have to get rid of attachments because you cannot. I mean, obviously, when you're DBE, is it DBE? I'm trying to think. I can't think of the long words to DBE. I can't think of the words, but it's DBE. It's NDE, I got it. NDE, near death experience. NDE, near death experience. Okay, that's why I was confused, because I started with the wrong letter. NDE. So it is a near death experience. You will experience something similar to death. In a way, it won't be as traumatic as death, but let me tell you, I just remembered a trauma that you go through, that I went through before I saw God face to face. But I'm not going to get to that yet. I'm going to get to other things yet. So the day after I started this quest, I had to go to town. There were some things I had to do. There was something I had to deliver to a lady in a bar, a bar restaurant where I used to go, and I tried to persuade her to let me preach there. And I was trying to start a church locally, but it didn't work. But for 3 months, I went to these restaurant bars back and forth a couple times a week, and I got to know a lot of people. I got to chat. I would stay for hours and chat to a lot of people. I met a lot of wankers. I met a lot of anti-God people, blasphemers, morons, people on the highway to hell, people who are lukewarm, people who are not against God, but they didn't really want to help start a church. They're not fervent or zealous. So I couldn't get it off the ground, and so I said, it's not meant to be. I'm going to do it on the internet. So that's exactly what I'm doing. This is the church. This is the teaching. I'm teaching and preaching on the internet, where I can reach more people than I can locally. If even if I opened up a center here, at the most I would probably gather would be 100 people a week, if that, maybe 50 a week. This is a rural community. There are very few people. And by the time I would build up a church, a really viable church, would probably be years. And I don't have years to put into this project. I'm too old to put years into it. But I can put my work into the internet, because it will stay here. It will stay here, and it can be seen through, it can be seen by many people. The sky is the limit. I see some sites getting millions of views, but they're usually the most evil, stupid, idiotic sites. Some of them are good sites. Some of them teach you how to build buildings, shelters in the cold, in the winter, in the desert. They teach you how to survive. Some of them teach you how to cook, how to do all kinds of skills. Those are good. I'm not saying those are bad, and those get millions of views too, especially ones that are foreign, like Asians and different nationalities. They're very, very popular. So I'm not complaining about that, but I am complaining about the kind of evil entertainment, like rap, sort of just low life entertainment. Some of it is low life entertainment, like men claiming how they destroyed other people in order to make billions of dollars, and they destroyed other businesses. I noticed that the other day, and this one guy, he says, billions and billions by destroying other businesses. I'm not going to say which ones, because you might know who it is, and he's a creep, so I don't want to give him any more publicity. But there were, like, within a week, there were like a couple of million people who had seen this, and that's what I call an evil, wanky, useless audience, going to places that will not help them in any way with God, in any way, not even with God, but with anything good on the earth. Okay, a quick review of last time. I said, get rid of sins, get rid of faults, get rid of attachments. Now, what are sins? Even though sex is not a sin in my new religion, I know in the old Christian religion and some other religions, including some people in Buddhism, I think, I'm not sure exactly what they think moral wise, but generally sex is looked down on in patriarchal religions. Why? Because it's about men and women, and men are trying to control women. So men have made sexuality a sin. They've made it dirty, they've made it forbidden, they've made it evil, all the while doing it. But women, they want to stop women from doing sex unless it's sanctioned by them, the men, through whatever way that they sanction it, whether it be marriage or um, be having a mistress, or going to a bordello, whatever way they want it. They want the sex, but they want you, the woman, to be under control sexually. So that's how sex became sinful, because the religions that we practice on this planet are, in the last few thousand years, they turned patriarchal. When we had matriarchal religion, sex was sacred, sex was fertility, sex was a blessing, sex was of God, sex was love. Okay, so in our new religion, it's matriarchal. Sex is not forbidden, it is not a sin, it's not dirty. Masturbation, fornication, adultery, we don't judge anybody as a sinner because of sex unless it's rape, abuse, and hurting someone. Okay, so now, however, having said that, I must make this disclaimer. When you're trying to see God face to face, there's going to be no sex involved, uh, because it draws attention to the body. And in the vision of seeing God face to face, you have to be dead to self. You have to cut down on your food. You have to be abstemious with your food. So I've been good with that for a year. I have lost 44 pounds, and I have suffered. I didn't do it in order to see God face to face. I did it because I wanted to lose weight. However, it also counted as a virtue of fasting. Fasting is a powerful virtue. All right, so now you have to, as I said, be abstemious with your food. You cannot be gluttonous. Try to eat less than you usually eat if you're on this path. And sex, try to get it out of your mind. Try to forget sex. No kind of sex. Um, you cannot be in love. So if you're in love with your spouse, you're going to ask or you're attached to your spouse, you're going to have to ask your spouse for time off. Spouse, I need right now a few months to just be with God. Now that's going to be rough. You might have kids. It's going to be rough. You might not be able to do this if you're married and you can't get time off from the marriage and from the kids. You might not be able to do it. Second of all, you might have a job. You probably can't do it if you have a job. There have been saints who lived in a monastery or a convent, and they wanted to be 100% close to God in a state of perfection, and they had to leave the monastery or a convent in order to lead the life of a hermit, in order to attain this type of vision, this type beatific vision, or to even get close to being able to see a beatific vision. They had to become a hermit. Now, as a hermit, they were still connected to the monastery or convent, like I read about it. And Saint Charbel, he left his monastery and he went out into the mountains where he was in Lebanon. But he wasn't real far away in the mountains, and he wasn't separated from the brethren. And the brethren would bring him one meal a day. It wasn't like a big meal, I'm sure it wasn't a big meal. It was probably an average meal. So he was eating uh, abstemiously, but he did have a meal a day. He didn't starve. Now, some in the past, when hermits have gone away by themselves, they were possibly starving. I mean, when the prophets went out sometimes by themselves, they were very incredibly hungry, incredibly starving, and somehow they managed. But they went hungry. But their desire for God was so strong that they were willing to suffer that in order to see God. And when Saint Benedict, when he first was a hermit, he was starving, and he says crows brought him food. And Saint John the Baptist, he was hungry a lot in the desert. I think probably his family might have brought him some food once in a while. Maybe some disciples brought him some food once in a while. I don't know. It doesn't say so in the Bible. It says that he ate locust and wild honey. So that could have been a lot of what he ate, but he could have imbibed in other things here and there. And then Jesus was in the desert, in the mountain. It's sort of a desert mountain, I think, what they have there. And he was there for 40 days and 40 nights. It says without food and water. I don't accept that. I'm skeptical about that, but that's okay. You can believe it if you want. But I think somebody probably brought him water and maybe a little food from time to time. So he was eating very little, but I don't see why God would want to do the miracle of having no water for 40 days. That really, it doesn't it doesn't square away right with me, because the devil wanted to put him to a foolish test and took him to the highest um, part of the temple and said, why don't you jump off? Because it says in the scripture that the devil, you will not dash your foot against the stone. You won't get hurt. And Jesus said, no, but you should not put God to a foolish test. So I think that going without water for 40 days and nights would be a foolish test. Now, without food, that's another story. Um, so that's just my opinion. You can believe what you want to believe. You want to believe he did it as a miracle? Go for it. Believe it. I also don't believe that Jesus was necessarily celibate. I believe that Mary Magdalene was his wife, and that doesn't mean he was evil or sinful, even though that is not what the Bible says. And I also agree with Sri Kaleshwar that, well, Sri Kaleshwar was a Hindu saint, a miracle worker, and he said that a lot of women were sexually after Jesus and said, "Bless my flower," and he obliged them, and there he had children. Now, why isn't that in the Bible? Because the guys maybe thought it would deter from the message of the Gospels, and people would be less inclined to think he was the Messiah and a great saint and a great prophet if they admitted that Jesus had sex with more than that he had a wife and sex with more than one woman and he had children. So maybe they thought, it was unimportant to the gospel. So they did not speak of anything about his private personal life. But maybe he had. I said maybe, didn't I? I can't prove he did. Sri Kaleshwar can't prove he did have a private life, that he was married and that he also had other women and that he had children. Nobody can prove it either way. So believe what you want to believe. Now, I believe it's irrelevant. I believe that maybe Jesus did what Sri Kaleshwar said. Maybe he had children. But I don't believe it's a sin, number one. And number two, to me, basically, sex is not a moral issue. So it would be irrelevant. Okay? Irrelevant. That would be what it would be. Not only should you not have sex if you want to see God face to face. This is not because it's a sin. This is a different path, a different road. It's called the road of perfection in some circles. It is spiritual perfection. In other words, it's a fine line. It's the razor's edge. It's a tightrope. There's a lot of things you cannot do to receive visions such as this. You cannot gossip. And I left that in my comment because on Friday I had to go to town and I had to go to this bar restaurant, and I saw a lady that owns it, and I said to her, we chatted I had to chat. I hadn't seen her in a year. I had to chat. But I was not supposed to get into any gossip or curiosity. That's forbidden to me, to get into any curiosity of the world or of people. Things that I don't need to know, uh, that are no longer my business. But I stepped over the line and I made one statement, and I said to her, "Have you seen Joe?" Joe was a guy I used to be friendly with a year ago, over a year ago, about a year ago. Yeah, a little over a year ago. And during that time, I was hanging out with people and thinking about building a church. And we used to meet there at her place. And I should not have asked her that, because I more or less broke up with him. I just stopped calling him. I stopped going by where he works. And so I ended it. I ended our friendship, and we were both thinking about having sex, maybe, for years. I've known him for over 30 years. And we were both thinking about maybe having sex. I know we were. I know I was, and I know he was. And so that was the basis of it. But then I decided, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to stay celibate again, because I quit my celibacy after 31 years, and I was a cougar for 11 years because God told me to. God told me to. God made me do it. And then when I stopped and I got out of it, and I got out of being in love with this one young man I was in love with, I was relieved and happy. I was set free. I said, God, am I off the hook? Are you going to let me go now? Let me be? And I assumed that God didn't answer me, but I assumed that God let me be because God didn't say anything to me about it. So I fulfilled my orders. I obeyed God. God told me go out and have fun, drink, have sex, whatever. Do your religious suffering right now. There was a reason for it. I haven't figured out the reason. I'm not curious. I'm not supposed to be curious. I have theories, but God has revealed nothing to me specifically. So I'm going to drop it. I'm not going to care. So what? I did what God said. That's all that matters when we live on this earth. We shouldn't question. I was taught by Mary of Agreda, by reading her, that you're not supposed to question the supernatural answers to everything of life. You should let some things remain where they are. If you need to know something, you must know something, or if it's valuable to you to know it, then go ahead and ask. But if it's not important, not relevant, and it seems like maybe God doesn't want to tell you, let it go, let it go, let it go. So I'm letting this go. Maybe someday God will tell me, but for now, it's a mute point. Okay, now, so by asking, have you seen Joe? I crossed over the line of propriety for the state that I am trying to be in at the moment. And that night, and I knew I felt it, I sensed it as I said those words. It was just 4 words. Have you seen Joe? And she gave me the lowdown of seeing or not seeing him. You know, it wasn't much. She gave me the answer. And then that night, I had nightmares half the night because of it. Half the night. Half the night for that 4 words. So that's how specific it is, that you cannot cross over the edge into gossip. And I have a lady I pray with every Sunday, and I am allowed to talk to her, but we pray together, and I read to her from Saint Faustina's book. It's a 1,000-page book. That's going to take forever to read from it. And but I'm not allowed to gossip with her, and I hope I didn't draw the line the last time we spoke, because I spoke a lot about the chef Gordon Ramsay. I spoke a lot about him, but he's doing God's work. He's doing more work than a priest straightening out people's life, or a missionary priest. I don't even count them, as most of them, as doing too much good. Some of them are, but missionaries who are sincere, they're doing a lot of good. So he's like a missionary, and I had a dream about him, that he is with God and he is doing God's work. So I told her that, and we talked about that and issues like that. So I didn't have any repercussions on that. But the day I had those nightmares, Saint Charbel appeared to me after a while, and he helped me. He helped me to get closure on my mistake, my fault, and he helped me straighten myself out. So that was all well and good. Okay, now the other things I thought of. Okay, so to review, no sex, no gluttony, you can't do drugs. If you're doing drugs, you will not see God face to face. You cannot be an alcoholic. I don't know if you can drink mildly, very mildly, because Jesus and the disciples, they drank wine all the time. So, and Jesus' first miracle was changing water into wine. I haven't prayed on that. I'll tell you later, but I assume that you should not drink alcohol. And I quit drinking alcohol when I started this diet about a year ago. I quit. So I haven't been drinking alcohol. So I'm good with that. Uh, what is the other thing? What are the other rules? I'm trying to think what the other rules are. Um, Oh, I can't watch anything secular like entertainment. I can't even listen to Beethoven. I, for the time being, I need to stop all entertainment except entertainment on God. And I've been watching. Last night I looked at a lot of segments of this amazing, amazing movie. Little segments. They have like bits and pieces of it on YouTube. It's called The Chosen, and it's about Jesus. It's Jesus' Gospels, and it's in a new and different way than I have ever seen. It's very valuable, very eye-opening, informative. Shows you things that you've never seen before. Uh, where this person who produced it and directed is showing it from a different perspective of that even the Bible doesn't give all the details, and he is adding things that he surmised from the culture of the Hebrews in that day, where some things don't quite add up or make sense, but he figured it out because of the culture of the Hebrews in that day. Like for example, a quick example, the woman at the well, he figured out that she was an outcast. Now, I had no idea she was an outcast. So that changes the color of the entire anecdote, but she was a serious outcast. So if you want to know about that, take a look at The Chosen, the woman at the well, and you'll understand what I'm saying. And the acting is incredible, the scenery is incredible, the lighting is incredible. Everything about this movie is incredible. So take a glance. I stopped looking at Joseph. This is more interesting than Joseph. Joseph was also a good movie. Maybe someday I'll finish watching Joseph, the Joseph guy, the Coat of Many Colors, the Dream Interpreter. But maybe someday I'll finish that, but not right now because I'm looking at The Chosen when I have time. I haven't had time today. I've been on the run today all day, just trying to get ready to do some of this. Okay, so you can, oh yes, work. The two times that I have made great advancements in getting closer to God, both times I took off work. First time was 1971, ages and ages ago. And I took a whole year off. My job was dancing at the time. I took a whole year and lived very modestly, lived off like $100 a week. And I meditated and did self hypnosis for a whole year. And that's when I got in touch with God for the first time as a still small voice. So it paid off. And then the next time I took off almost a whole year from work was 1981. And all I did was religious stuff, spiritual stuff, and did not speak to people, no entertainment, no music, no TV, no nothing, just God stuff. And I ended up seeing God face to face twice. So now I'm on the same kick. I'm on the same kick. I do not have to go to work for anyone else. I do all my work at home, my religious work. That's what I do. That's my stock and trade. So I'm a minister, I'm a servant of God, I do God's work. So that is no conflict. However, I was looking at secular stuff, movies, a lot of entertainment. You know, whenever I was exhausted and tired, I would look at entertainment on YouTube, and I stopped that. So that has to stop, and that you have to take off work. So now, if you cannot take off work, you might not be able to do this because you need, I would say, the bare minimum, the absolute minimum to take off from work is 6 months. So there's a lot of obstacles against doing this that might stop you. You can't have a family and children that you're involved with deeply. You cannot be in love. If you're in love, the person you're in love with is the one your life is focused on, and you cannot serve two masters. You cannot serve two masters. You'll despise one and serve the other, whether it be, you cannot serve God and money, and you cannot be in love with God and in love with somebody at the same time. You have to quit the person you're in love with. You have to get over it. I'm very sorry to tell you all these rules, but this is what I understand and what I know. And now, if you can still make it, then you can surprise me. You can surprise me. But that's what I understand. That's the way I understand it, because I was in love and I lost all my intimacy with God when I was in love. When I was dating this young man from 2016 to 2019, and I finally broke it. I just broke it. And he ended up dying. I think he killed himself when I broke off, because he died of a drug overdose. And I warned him and warned him and warned him, and refused to go into rehab, refused to quit the person that was enabling him to be on drugs every day. And he died. When I broke up with him 2 months later, he was dead. But I was free, and he's still united to me as my spiritual husband. I told him we'll be spiritually married forever, you and I, and we are. And I'm married to 6 other men besides him, so I'm not lonely. Okay? This is spiritual husbands. We're talking spiritual, okay? Okay, now, what else did I want to tell you? So you've got all these rules of what you cannot do. What can you do? You can either go to church every day, go to mass every day if possible, or I say the Holy Mass at home every day. If you're a Catholic, or if they have confession in your church, go to confession. Receive any sacraments you can. Sacraments would help. Pray in the church. I used to pray in a Gothic church. I love Gothic churches. They're the most, but I haven't been in one of these churches in years. The modern churches don't grab me. They don't inspire me. They don't turn me on at all. They don't give me the feeling I used to get when I went to Gothic churches. I used to spend hours a day in Gothic churches. St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City, St. Julian Amard's Church on 70 something Street, 74th. It was around 74th and 6th or 3rd or something around there, that general area. And many other Gothic churches. When I grew up, I made my Holy Communion and went to Mass every Sunday in a Gothic church. And when I was in Brooklyn and Williamsburg, I went to the Annunciation, old Gothic Lithuanian church. I went there a lot. Actually, when I was really close to God, I went every day. Wherever I was, when I traveled, I went to a church every day for Mass. So, I've been keeping up with it, keeping up with my duties as a person who loves God. Okay, so now, what else do I need to teach you today? What else do I need to review? It is very important, your motives for seeing God face to face. It cannot be for the motive of proving to anybody else that you can do it. This would be counterproductive, because you can only get close to God for the love of God, not to be seen as holy, sanctified, or anything advanced, an advanced spiritual saint. If that is your motive, you will fail. When the rabbis and the Levites and the Pharisees were doing such things, Jesus denounced them, and he said, you have your reward here on earth. You walk around with a long face when you fast, so people would feel sorry for you. And you have your reward on earth. God will not reward you for your fasting. And when you pray, you make long discourses, like, as if you're a saint, and you pray where people will see you, and you wear these long tassels and phylacteries, whatever that they are, and you have your reward here because you seek the notice of people. So when you do anything regarding religion or God to seek the notice of people, to be looked upon as learned, spiritual, saintly, sanctified, advanced, anointed, if you look to get rewards, applause, recognition from people, you will not get the recognition from God. You will not get rewarded by God. It will not make your place in heaven any higher. One time, Saint Padre Pio, who was a stigmatist for 50 years, he drew a crowd, and the crowd were all cheering and crying out for him. And he said, "Oh no, oh no, I'm getting my reward on earth, and I won't get a reward in heaven." He was very upset about these people cheering him because, of course, they looked upon him as a saint because he had the exterior stigmata. I have the stigmata, but nobody applauds me for it because it's interior, and I tell people about it, but they don't really connect with that or believe me. In fact, my relatives don't believe me that I have it because they think it has to be physical and visible, but it's not true. There are many saints who had the invisible stigmata: Saint Gertrude the Great, Saint Faustina, Saint Catherine of Siena, Saint Teresa of Avila, and others. They had the interior divine stigma. There's many, many. The greatest saints, Saint Clare probably had it. The associate of Saint Francis, Saint Francis had the physical, and she probably had the spiritual stigmata. I don't know that, but the learned men say that they know when they can tell when somebody has the interior divine stigmata. So it is very important that you do not do what we are doing right now, trying to see God face to face for the applause of the world. You do not work for the world. Okay, another thing that you do not do is that's another rule. Do not feel sorry for yourself when you suffer, and do not try to get people to feel sorry for you when you suffer. When you suffer for God, you suffer for other souls, you suffer to get closer to God, you suffer to help souls in purgatory, you suffer for spiritual, religious reasons. Do not try, do not go and start explaining all your sufferings to people so that they will pity you or feel sorry for you, because then you will not get your reward in heaven. The thing about this vision is, it is a given or an assumption that you love God. And you're doing this because you want to see God, you want to be close to God, you want to see how close you can get to God, and you want to know the formula, you want to know um, the way to do it. You know, I mean, in yoga, they try to do miracles and phenomenons by practicing meditation and all sorts of practices that they do, and there's nothing wrong with it. You can do it, but do it, of course, like I said, I already went through that. I'm not going to go through that again. The most of the idea is get away from people and things. Also, oh, I forgot to mention, give away anything you don't need. Like, this is the time to follow what Jesus said, with a grain of salt. Don't you don't have to do it 100% completely. Jesus said to the rich young man, he wanted to know how to be perfect. He was already a good guy. He followed all the commandments. He did everything properly. And so Jesus said, "There's one thing you haven't done. Go, sell all you have, give to the poor, and follow me." Now, that would be very difficult for a lot of us. We own property, we have stocks, we have bank accounts. So for us to do that in order to see God face to face, it's not going to happen. I prayed on that, and God told me, you take that, what Jesus said, with a grain of salt. Just what you have, God gave you. It's a gift from God. God gave that to you so you could do her work, so that you would be free, so that you wouldn't have to live a life of drudgery anymore from week to week and worry and worry and worry and be struggling and running to make a living, to pay your bills. You showed your willingness to work for God, to be generous. You gave away a lot of your earnings, even when you were poor, for God's work. You did a lot of things for God, for people. And so God rewarded you, and God gave you these things so that you could be free to continue to do God's work. So you're not going to now go give it away, because then you'd have to work again every day for someone else, and your life would be miserable in that sense like it was before. And you're certainly not going to be walking in America. Our culture does not accept homelessness. In some of the Buddhist countries and other countries in Tibet, or I don't know, I'm not sure about Tibet, but in some places you can go from door to door and beg, and you can, but here it's not approved. They call the police on you. In India they do that. That's an acceptable lifestyle. When there are people, I'm trying to think what they call them, sannyasas or something, they go from door to door, and from um, not monastery, they call it something else. Oh, I forgot what they call those things. Ashrams. They go from ashram to ashram. They don't work. They just basically pray, and they're supposed to be praying and giving you good luck. Uh, Good luck by if you help them or you give them a meal or give them a donation. They're supposed to bring you good luck through their prayers. And they do that in the Buddhist way too, in Tibet and in Buddhist countries. In other places, I just saw a thing on Thailand. Thailand, or is it Thailand or Thailand? Thailand, I guess. In Thailand, they do that. They do a Buddhist thing, and they go from door to door, and people line up to give them donations of rice, food, and other things. So that's an accepted part of their culture. But in America, we don't have that. We do not have that accepted part of our culture. You go from door to door begging, they're going to call the police because they fear you. They fear you robbing them or hurting their children or doing something wrong. So it's not part of our culture. So therefore, it's certainly not going to happen to me, and I'm not going to do it. Okay, so now I prayed on that, and God told me, no, you keep your property, you keep what God gave you, whatever money you have, whatever property you have, which you need to stave off, um, you know, stave off the being made homeless. And second of all, but the things you don't need, you've been giving away. I gave away a whole household of things when I moved from my apartment. Everything in that apartment plus much, much more I gave to a family whose house burned down. It took me like 6 carloads of stuff that I gave them. And I didn't give them my worst stuff. I gave them my good stuff. I gave them my best blankets, my best dishes, my best pottery, my best stuff. It wasn't what you give that you don't, you want to throw away. Instead of throwing away, you give it to the poor. No, it wasn't like that. Okay, so I've been on the road to giving away everything I don't need now for a while, for years, for several years. So I'm going to work on that some more and give away expensive stuff that I've been holding on to, clothing. When I was in show business, I bought expensive clothing because it goes with the territory. You can't look shabby when you're in show business. So I've had these clothes for years, and I almost never wear them. Actually, I haven't worn some of these items for years. They're like coats, leather, beautiful leather, glamorous coats. I have several. I'm going to give them away. I already gave away my furs. I had fur that I inherited. I didn't buy it. I inherited it, and I gave it away for free. I didn't charge for it. Whatever. So I'm going to continue on that. So I'm telling you, don't hold on to any luxuries. Don't hold on to clothes you don't need. Give away all the clothes you don't need. Give away the household items you don't need, that you don't use. Give away extra things you don't need. Give away superfluous things. Give away luxury items. Don't keep luxury items. Luxury items are not approved, not acceptable. Luxury items are things that you just use for status or show, or look at what I have, look at what I own. No, don't do that. Don't do that. You won't be perfect with God if you do that. You won't meet God face to face if you do that. Don't do that. Give away. I remember in 1981, I thought about anything I had to give. I had almost nothing. I was living in poverty already. I had been living in relative poverty, relative, not that I didn't have enough for food. Wasn't that bad. But I had no luxuries, no luxuries, and I lived from week to week. And I suddenly remembered a beautiful, colorful tapestry that I had in a trunk. And it was like a Spanish flamenco tapestry made of those beautiful colors that they make from velvet. It wasn't expensive, mind you. It was like $30. And that was a long time ago, though. That was 1981. So today, something like that would go for, I don't know, $100. And then my neighbor, I had Spanish neighbors, and my neighbor, I knocked on her door, I took the tapestry. I said, "Would you like to have this?" And I showed it to her. She said, "Oh, yes, thank you." It was very beautiful. So I got rid of my last item that I didn't need that was a piece of luxury. Well, now I have more than that. I have probably a lot more than that. I don't know how many items, but I'm going to give them away. And so I'm going to be clean. God already knows that. So God is not holding that against me. God knows I've been on a roll. I've been giving away stuff as quick as I can gather it and put it together. God knows that. So God already is accepting that as if I had already done it. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to finish doing it. Okay, so what else do you have to know? No gossip, no entertainment. Pray as much as you can. Meditate as much as you can. Look at religious things on YouTube if you or whatever on your internet. If you watch television, don't watch anything secular. Only watch religious stuff if they have it. Uh, pray, pray constantly. Go out in nature. Be with nature. You'll have to take off work. You'll have to quit being in love. You'll have to quit your family. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You can't be running with your kids every day, all day. Because I know kids will drain you. Kids will annoy you. Kids will trouble you. Kids will mind boggle you. I don't know what you can do about it. If there's nothing you can do with your kids, you might not be able to succeed in this endeavor. You might have to wait. So try to get as close to God as you can, even with the obstacles that you have. You might not make it all the way to divine vision, the beatific vision. You might not make it to there all the way. But even if you make it there part way, you will notice that you will gain happiness. As you throw off all the people you forgive off your back and living rent free in your brain, as you throw that off and as you renounce all your desire for recognition, fame and fortune, recognition, great wealth or more than you need, a luxurious car. You can't be thinking about buying a new sports car, a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or even a Mercedes, a new Mercedes or a new Cadillac or a new Corvette. You can't be thinking about things like that. You cannot. You gotta, drive the average car. If you drive a luxury car, make sure it's used. I have a luxury car, but when I bought it, it was used several years, and I got it at a very good price. And I needed a good car because when you're a woman and you're alone, you don't want to be breaking down on the road. If you're a man, it's not as bad. If you're a woman, it's worse. And I used to have cars that broke down on me, that messed up, that, would just go bad somewhere when I'm out in the middle of the boondocks or something. All right, so there's one other thing, but I think I'm going to save it. It's about what happens just before I saw God face to face, and it was something frightening. Not frightening like a boogeyman or a demon, nothing like that, nothing like cancer, nothing frightening like that, but a state of mind that was frightening. I'm not going to explain it right now. I'm going to let it wait until the next time so you'll have something to look forward to. I'll explain it to you next time. And when it happened to me, I had no clue to what it was because I had never seen God face to face. And I did not know this might be a prelude to God face to face because I didn't know I was going to see God face to face. You understand? So I was baffled. perplexed, confused, and frightened. Okay, so I'll explain that next time. So now I'm going to close up for now, and in as soon as I can, I'll make another video. It might be tomorrow, it might be 2, 3 days, 4 days, but I'm hoping to make them as often as I can. And it's my diary on the journey of seeing God face to face. I love you. Take care. Be good. Behave yourself. Be happy. Try to be happy. And you can be happy by forgiving everyone who hurt you and by giving up all your desires for fame and fortune. Amen. We'll talk to you next time. Stay happy and well.